सदाशिवसमारम्भाम् शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ तत्सत्। ॐ नमः शिवाय.
Om Namah Shivaya.
So we are on the third chapter. What is the name of the chapter? Guys, sorry.
Advaita Prakaranam.
Advaita Prakaranam in the 17th verse. Okay, so we will now chant that. Swasiddhanta vyavasthasu
स्वसिद्धान्त्यवस्थासु
vaitino nischita dhridam
द्वैतिनो निश्चिता दृढम्
parasparam virudhyante
परस्परं विरुध्यन्ते
vairayam na virudhyate.
तैरयं न विरुध्यते.
So Gaudapada is now taking a small bypass. In the next 5-6 Karikas, he takes up the views of Purvapakshis, those who are not Advaitins. So he says here, Dvaitinaha Dridham Nischitaha. The Dvaitins are firm in their conclusions. What conclusions? Swasiddhanta Vyavasthasu. The conclusions which are brought up in their own darshanams, they are very firmly convinced about them. So he's talking about different types of Dvaitins, like Nyayikas, Nyaya Darshanams, and Sankhya Darshanam. They are all Dvaitins. So he's saying that they are all firmly established in their own conclusions. But what is the problem? Parasparam virudhyate. They contradict each other. One school of Dvaitins contradicts another school of Dvaitins. For example, Nyaya Darshana, Nayayika we call them. What do they say? That the basic building block of the universe is Paramanu, atoms. So they are talking about many karanams. Atoms are many, multiple atoms. They all come together and they bring one matter, one jagat. So remember, when we talk about Nyaya Darshana, they are talking about Parmanus, which means there is not just one karanam, there are multiple karanams, thousands of atoms which go into molecules and so on. And then they are all put together and then they give you one product. So the karanam is the causes are many, but the product, the karyam is one. Like for example, a car. You take a car, for example, a car is made up of multiple parts, right? And so he says that all the multiple parts come together and make one car. So all the multiple atoms, they come together and they make the universe. So that is the Nayayika view. What do Sankhyas, on the other hand, say? For Sankhyas, the material cause is what? What does Sankhya Darshana say the material cause is?
Prakriti.
Prakriti. So there's one Prakriti, and from that one Prakriti, you get jivas, you get mountains, you get planets. So from one, many are coming. So completely different viewpoints. Nayayika says that from multiple karanams, one product comes. Sankhya says that from one karanam, multiple products come. So he says they are contradictory to each other. However, taihi ayam na virudhyate. This ayam, this Advaitic teaching, this ajati vadaha, it does not contradict either the Sankhyas or the Nayayikas. They contradict each other, but Advaitic teaching does not contradict them. How do we understand? From the relative degree of reality, what we call Vyavaharika Satyam. From the Vyavaharika Satyam, you actually have Pramanam, which is your experience, Anubhava Pramanam, right? Your own experience, where you see both. You see, for example, one becoming many. How? Take an example. From one seed, you will have a tree which has branches, leaves, fruits, etc. So, ekam to anekam, from one to many, we actually see. We have experience, Anubhava Pramana. Also, we see, for example, we see, let us say, a car being put together or a building being put together. You take multiple bricks and put them together, and you get one building. So from the Vyavaharika angle, there is no contradiction either of these views, because we see one becoming many and we see many becoming one also. Therefore, this experiential knowledge, Anubhava Pramanam, it supports both the Nyaya Darshana view as well as the Sankhya Darshana view. Okay. But scriptures, Shruti also talks about Ekam to Anekam. If Shruti, Vedanta also talks about one to many, and Sankhya also talks about one to many, what could be the possible difference? What is the possible difference? Because Sankhya also says one to many, Vedanta also says one to many. What would you think is the difference?
In Sankhya, Purusha is different than Prakriti, but in Shruti,
We
Jagat
are
is
talking about
Mithya.
one to many. You have to explain one to many. The idea is Sankhya says one karanam, many karyam. Vedanta says one karanam, many karyam. What is the difference?
Sankhya says the karyam is different from the karanam. Whereas we,
Sankhya, yes, that is one difference. But what is the main difference? Sankhya says creation is satyam, is real. Vedanta says creation is mithya, unreal. So that is the main difference. Okay. Now, if you look at the other darshanas, so you have, for example, Kapila Muni's Sankhya, Kanada's Vaisheshika, Buddha's Bauddha Darshanam, and Jainism also is there. The followers of all these darshanas, remember, they are Dvaitins. Who is a Dvaitin actually? What is the difference between a Dvaitin and Advaitin? For a Dvaitin, remember, the duality, the multiplicity is accepted as real. For a Advaitin, the multiplicity is not accepted as real. Duality is a mithya. You have one satyam and multiple mithyas. While for all the other darshanas, there is as many realities as they talk. Basically, if you're talking about Srishti and the Lord, both are real, right? Both are Satyam. Okay. And here Shankara in his commentary adds that these other Dvaitins, they hold on very firmly to their views. And not only that, they say that any view opposed to themselves is wrong. So they dislike other darshanas. So in his commentary, Shankara uses the word tam dishwantaha. They dislike, they hate the other points of view. It's a very important point which Shankara is bringing out, that you can disagree with the view of somebody else without bringing in dislike. But if you are a Dvaitin, what is the problem? There is a fanatic adherence to your philosophy. Because of that, you are not able to accept any other philosophy. Therefore, Dvaitins among themselves also, they are opposed to each other. That point is being made here. That, for example, Nyaya Darshana does not agree with Sankhya Darshana. And not only that, each one is strongly attached to his own views. And that's a very good point, because if the knowledge is correct, you can appreciate the other person's point of view. There will be no raga dvesha. So, in any argument, if you have seen, the person whose convictions are not very strong, who has a weaker point of view, he is the one who gets angry faster, right? And this is the point which we should always use to judge ourselves. In any discussion, am I getting irritated? And if I am getting irritated, then the possibility is that I am not very strong in my view, and therefore I should once again examine the fundamentals of the position that I am taking. Okay. And then Shankara in his commentary implies that actually only Advaitins can be classified as Vaidikas. The other darshanas are not really Vaidikas, because the Advaitin does not take other darshanas as opposed to his views. His vision, it encompasses other darshanas. He takes them as stepping stones to Advaita, because they belong to different levels of reality. And therefore, the point which Shankara brings out is a very subtle one. Advaitam does not mean absence of Dvaitam. We should never think Advaitam means there is no Dvaitam at all. But Advaitam is Advaitic conviction. There is non-duality in my vision, in spite of the perception of duality. Why? Duality cannot be avoided in the Vyavaharika plane. In the relative plane, transactional plane, everything is duality only. You can never avoid duality. You can only transact in the Vyavaharika plane with the understanding that there is non-duality in spite of the transactional duality. And this non-duality is not in Vyavaharika, it's not in the transactional plane. The non-duality is in the Paramarthika, the absolute level. So that's the first point. Secondly, duality is necessary because in the beginning stage of any sadhana, what is the sadhana beginning for us? Karma yoga, upasana yoga, all this requires duality, right? You need the karta, you need the factors of action, everything you need. And therefore, Advaitam cannot possibly include any other darshanas. The only understanding is that at the Paramarthika level, there is non-duality. At the Vyavaharika level, there is the duality, but that duality is a superimposition. It is a adhyasa on the Advaitam. The substratum is non-duality. The superimposition is duality. And the superimposition cannot exist without the substratum. Shankara gives the example of the fact that your hands and legs cannot exist without you as a whole person. So Dvaitam cannot exist without Advaitam. At the same time, you should know that Dvaitam should not be considered a real part of Advaitam, because Dvaitam belongs to a different level, a lower order of reality. So very, very important Karika. Now we'll go to the next one. Karika number 18. We will chant. Advaitam paramartho hi
Advaitam
Advaitam
paramartho
paramartho
hi
hi
tohi
Dvaitam tadbheda uchyate
Dvaitam
Dvaitam
tadveda
tadveda
uchyate
Tesham ubhayata dvaitam
Tesham
ubhyata
ubhayata dvaitam
Enayam na viruddhyate.
Chena
tenayam na viruddhyate.
viruddhyate.
So Advaitam hi Paramarthika. Paramartha means Paramarthika reality. Advaitam hi Paramartha. Advaitam indeed is the Paramarthika reality. And Dvaitam tad bheda uchyate. Duality is said to be an apparent difference, a product of the Advaita. And Tesham, for that, this Desham refers to the Dvaita Vadi, the persons who follow Dvaita philosophy like Nyaya or Sankhya. So Tesham, for those people, Ubhayata Dvaitam. Dvaitam exists at both the levels. Ubhayata here means both levels. What both levels? Empirically as well as absolutely. So remember, for the Dvaitins, everything is Vyavaharika only. There is no concept of Paramarthika. You can take Vyavaharika as Mithya only if you have a higher level of reality called Paramarthika. And since they don't have Paramarthika, everything is Satyam for them. Right? So they take everything as Satyam. And then he says, Tena ayam na viruddhyate. But this Advaitam does not conflict with even this viewpoint of Dvaitam. So, what is the reason for saying that Advaitam is not opposed to Dvaitam? So Shankara says, look at the word Bheda, Tad Bhedaha. What does the word Bheda mean? Bheda here means a difference, and that has to be understood as a product, a karyam. So this Vyavaharika reality is a karyam, is a product of Advaitam. And as we know, any karyam has the same nature as the karanam. The product is always having the same nature as the cause. And that is why we say Dvaitam is mithya. There is no gold bangle which is different from the gold. The only addition is the name and the form, and that name and form is mithya. And Shankara in his commentary gives two what do you call statements from the scriptures, which we have not done as yet. They both belong to Chandogya Upanishad, but I'll just quote them. So first mantra he quotes is Ekam Eva Advitiyam. There is only one Brahman, and that Brahman is Advaitam. So that one Advaita Brahman is Karanam. And then again he quotes Tat Tejaha Asrujataha. That Advaita Brahman, he created the universe using his Maya Shakti. The two statements. There is only one Advaita Brahman. That Advaita Brahman using Maya Shakti created the Jagat, and therefore that creation is Mithya. And Shankara gives logical support also. He says that when the mind is, entertaining thoughts, at that point of time, you will find that Dvaitam is there. And the mind is not entertaining thoughts, you will find that Dvaitam is missing. So he gives three examples of the states when the mind is not having thoughts, which essentially means when the mind is resolved. So one is samadhi, one is the unconscious state. You've fallen, hit your head somewhere, so you're unconscious. So one is samadhi, one is unconscious state, and the third one is sushupti avastha. He says in all these three states, the mind is not functional. There are no thoughts, and therefore, since there are no thoughts, there is no Dvaitam also. So we can, convert this into Anvaya Vyatirekha. So I can first let us make it into English, then we'll try to get the Sanskrit part of it. The Anvaya Vatirakha will be when the thoughts are there, then Dvaitam is there. When thoughts are not there, Dvaitam is also absent. So this is the Anvaya Vyatireka statement. What is the conclusion from the statement? Therefore, thoughts alone are the cause of Dvaitam. You can understand? It's easier in Sanskrit. Vritti Sattve Dvaitam Satyam. Vritti Abhave Dvaitam Abhavaha. Hence, Vritti Eva Dvaitasya Karanam. Dvaitam itself is caused by thoughts only. Right? Okay. Why does it happen? Because when thoughts are not there, what is the state? It is Advaitam. Therefore, the Advaitam resolves into its cause, Advaitam. And when Dvaitam arises again, where does it arise from? It arises from the cause, which is Advaitam only. And therefore, he says, Tad Bhedaha. That word, Dvaitam, has to be said to be the product of Advaitam. Why? Because Dvaitam is born from Advaitam and Dvaitam resolves into Advaitam. What is the connection? Karana, Karya, Sambandha. The creator created connection is there. Okay. Now, so Shankara has shown using Shruti as well as logical support, Yukti, that Dvaitam is a product. And since all products are Mithya, Dvaitam is also Mithya. Now you might say, like the the Dvaitins will say, because they don't have the concept of Mithya at all. They say we don't accept Dvaitam as Mithya because we don't believe in Mithya. What is the problem? The first problem is that if you think about it, if you use Shastram or religion to arrive at Advaitam, then that religion will be a safe religion, right? There is no fanaticism there. But if you don't use Advaitam as a stepping stone, but if you don't use that religion as a stepping stone to bring you to Advaitam, which means Advaitam is not there anywhere in your thinking during the religious process, then what happens? Then there are multiple gods because every religion will have its own god. And when I claim that my God alone is real, everybody else is unreal, then it becomes a cause for fanaticism. And therefore, my only aim in a religion which does not accept Advaitam is to convert everybody to my religion because I am insecure about my religion. Right? For example, within Hinduism itself, a Vaishnava who does not accept Advaitam, he will say Vishnu alone is the real God. You should not even go to a Shiva temple. And the Shaivite will say that no, Shiva alone is the real God. You should never enter a Vishnu temple. But what will you do as an Advaitic Acharya or Advaitic believer? You will say, I can worship Vishnu or Shiva because ultimately Vishnu and Shiva are both product of the same Advaitam. And therefore he says, Tenayam na virudhyate. The Advaitam has no contradiction with any other religion. We say you can follow any course, any sadhana, but that sadhana is useful only for Chitta Shuddhi. Once Chitta Shuddhi has come, then you have to come to Jnanam. Jnanam will bring you to Advaitam. And therefore he says that this Advaitic teaching is not in conflict with any Dvaitam at all. Okay. we look at Karika number 19, which we will chant. Mayaya bidhyate he tad.
Mayaya
Mayaya vidyate
vidyate
tat
Nanyatha jam kathanchana.
nanyatha jam katanchana
Tatvato bidhyamanehi.
tatvato vidyamane
Murtyatam amritam vrajet.
martyatam
vrajet.
So you have to break up carefully. The hetad is he, etad. And the fourth word has to be nanyatha plus ajam. And then you put them together and you say etad ajam vidyate. This etat, this atma, this Brahman, ajam, which is birthless, vidyate, it appears to be different. Why? Different meaning, it appears to have multiple views. This one birthless atma seems to become multiple products. What is the cause of this differentiation? Maya hi. It is because of Maya only. And na anyatha kathanchanaha. The differentiation is solely due to Maya and not na anyatha kathanchana, not in any other manner. What is the reason for saying this? Vidyamane tatvatahi, supposing that Atma tatvataha really were to become multiple. Tatvataha vidyamane, supposing that one Atma were really to become multiple products. What is the problem? Amritam, that immortal Atma, martyatam rajit, will become mortal. Right? So this is the logic. If you say that Brahman actually becomes different and the difference is not mithya, so if you are saying that Brahman is Satyam and all the products are also Satyam, Jagat is also Satyam, then you are saying that that immortal Atma is changing, right? Is being converted. And something which changes can never be mortal. Therefore, Amritam, that immortal Atma, Martyatam Vrajet, will become mortal. Now, we should note that every darshana, whether it be Sankhya or Nyaya, they say that the universe is a product, right? Sankhya says the Karanam is Prakriti. Nyaya says the Karanam is Paramanu. But for both Nyaya and Sankhya, the Jagat, the universe is real. Both say Jagat is a product, but they both say Jagat is real. Vedanta also says Jagat is a product, but Vedanta does not say Jagat is real. Now, we have to be very clear about this because when we say that the universe is a product of Brahman, remember that there's a rule in Vedanta, Karana gunaha karye anuvartante. The attributes of the cause of the Karanam are always inherent in the product. Like if it is 24 karat gold, which you are using to make a bangle, the bangle also will be 24 karat gold, assuming that you are not doing any mixing. So when we talk about the cause and the product, we are talking about the Karanam, the cause, becoming the karyam, the product. And here we must very carefully note that there are two ways in which the karanam can become the karyam. What is one way? The karanam loses its natural attributes and transforms into the product. So every word is important. One way is the karanam gives up its own attributes and transforms into a product. We can call it transformative material cause. A material cause which has transformed into the product. So I'm using the word transformative material cause. In Sanskrit, we call it what? Parinami Upadana Karan. Parinami indicating the transformation. So that is the first way in which the Karanam becomes the Karyam. The second way in which the Karanam becomes the Karyam is the Karanam doesn't surrender its attributes, and therefore the transformation is figurative. We are still talking about material cause, Upadana Karanam. But in this case, the transformation is figurative. So we can call it transfigurative material cause. There are two ways. One is a transformation of the material cause. One is a figurative transformation of the material cause. Though this figurative transformation we call Vivarta Upadana Karanam. The word Vivarta indicates that the Karanam is not giving up its own attributes. The word Parinami indicates that the Karanam is giving up its attributes. Okay, further, there is a further classification. What is an example of a Parinami Upadana Karanam? Milk becoming yogurt, right? That is the example of Parinami Upadana Karanam. Why? Because milk has given up its original attributes and become something new, yogurt, right? What is the example of Vivarta Upadana Karanam? The rope produces the snake, or the desert sand, hot desert sand. It produces the mirage lake, the mirage water. Okay. So there is a distinction here, which we have to carefully understand. I mean, we may know all this at the back of our mind, but I'm just putting it to words. When there is a parinami upadana karanam involved, remember that some karma is necessary for the change to take place. Right? For example, let us take the milk itself. What is necessary for the milk to produce yogurt? How do we get the milk to become yogurt? What is the karma required?
Adding the starter.
Adding some curds or something like that, adding the starters, right? So that's karma, it's the actual addition. So karma is required. So that is one type. What has happened here? That the milk has completely given up its nature and become yogurt. Now, can you think of a parinami upadana karanam where the karanam doesn't completely give up its nature, only some change takes place? What is an example? No? Is there a difference between the clay becoming a pot and the milk becoming yogurt? What is the difference?
The pot can come back to its original form, the clay, whereas the curd cannot reverse. The property itself hasn't changed.
Can you reword that?
You can, when you see the pot, you can still see the clay in it. There is no separate existence to the pot other than the clay. But in the case of curd, the original can no longer be seen.
Okay, so let me put it this way. In the case of the milk becoming the yogurt, the curds, the milk has completely given up its nature. In the case of the pot becoming, the clay becoming the pot, what has happened? The original nature has not been completely given up, but a change has taken place. The shape has changed. In both cases, karma is required. But in one case, therefore, this is the idea I am trying to put forward, that parinami upadana karanam can take place at two levels. One is completely transformed, one is partially transformed. Okay. So what is the conclusion? When a parinami upadana karanam produces a karyam, it can be either fully transformed or it can be partially transformed. But whether it is a complete transformation or a partial transformation, remember that the karyam and the karanam are at the same level of reality. The milk is vyavaharika satyam, the curds is vyavaharika satyam. The clay is vyavaharika satyam, the pot is vyavaharika satyam. What has happened is that some karma has been necessary for the change. Okay. So in the case of parinami upadana karanam, whether the transformation is full or partial, you need some karma. Some action is needed for the transformation. However, in the case of the figurative transformation, which we call vivarta upadana karanam, for example, the rope producing a snake. The rope is at a particular level of reality. In this case, of course, vyavaharika satyam. The snake is what satyam?
Pratibhasika.
The snake is pratibhasika satyam, which is one level of reality which is lower. So if you call the rope as objective reality, then the snake becomes subjective reality. The rope is transactional reality. The snake is subjective reality, is one level lower, right? And very, very important idea, just as karma is required for the conversion of the upadana karanam, either fully or partially, there is something required for the rope to produce the snake. What is that?
Ignorance.
Ignorance.
Partial light.
No, partial light you can say, but ultimately it is ignorance, right? So ajnanam is required for a vivarta upadana karanam to produce a karyam. So this is the idea which you have to remember, that parinami upadana karanam, producing a karyam, requires karma, while vivarta upadana karanam, producing a karyam, requires a upadhi, right? The ignorance is the upadhi in the case of the rope snake example. In the case of the dream example, for the waker to become the Vivarta Upadana Karanam for the dream world, what is required? The Upadhi is sleep, Nidra. Only in the presence of the Nidra Upadhi can the waker become the Vivarta Upadana Karanam and the dream world be produced. Okay. Now, similarly, for Brahman to become Vivarta Upadana Karanam, an Upadhi is required, and that is Maya Upadhi. Without Ajnanam, without Avidya, rope cannot be the Vivarta Upadana Karanam. Without Maya, Brahman cannot be the Vivarta Upadana Karanam. Right. Now, Shankara calls this change, the partial change, he calls it Avayava Parinam, change in form but not in substance. Right? And he gives two examples. So he says, just as there are multiple moons seen by a person who has a cataract, there's only one moon actually, but he sees multiple moons. What is the Upadhi? It's pretty obvious actually what the Upadhi is. Anybody? No? The Upadhi is the cataract, the defect in the eye.
Shariram, we can say.
Sorry?
We can say Sukshma Shariram or cataract, yeah.
It's the cataract. Cataract is a physical thing. It's a defect in your eye, physical eye. So the
Physical.
Upadhi is required.
Okay.
Then in the case of the Rajju Sarpa, the snake rope, there's a Upadhi, but that Upadhi is it's Ajnanam. It's Avidya. Right? So that's the reason. He gives an example to say these are the two types. And then he says that because Brahman has no parts, the differentiation cannot be really there. Like the clay and the pot, right? Note that the clay and the pot is not Vivarta Karanam. The clay is the Upadana Karanam, Parinami Upadana Karanam, with partial transformation. While the milk becoming curds is also Parinami, but total transformation. But both are Parinami Upadana Karanam. But he says Brahman having no parts, there is no way in which Brahman can become a Parinami Upadana Karanam. There is no way in Brahman can produce anything excepting by way of functioning as Vivarta Upadana Karanam. So only way that Brahman can produce the world is if it has a Maya Upadhi. And together with Maya Upadhi, that Brahman becomes a Vivarta Upadana Karanam. Right? So the conclusion he gives is that Brahman, which is birthless, non-dual, and unchanging, that Brahman can really produce no world at all. It can function as a Vivarta Upadana Karanam, and therefore the world has to be Mithya. Very nice argument putting forward, saying the world has to be Mithya. And therefore, to summarize the discussion, when I say that Brahman transforms, and when I say anything transforms, or anything changes, the first thing I should remember is that there can be either a partial transformation or a total transformation. And to understand this, I have to remember that every object, in this case the Karanam, can be thought of as two things: the substance itself and the attribute. For example, if gold is the substance, then the form is the attribute. And the name because of the form, is also attribute. So gold is vastu, nama rupa, name and form are attributes. Therefore, when partial transformation takes place, what happens? The substance does not change, the gold does not change, only the attribute changes. Right? However, in the case of milk into curds, not only the form changes, the attribute also changes. Right? So, wherever there is a partial or total change, total transformation, remember that it is functioning as a parinami upadana karanam. Right. In vivarta upadana karanam, there can be no change, partial or total. If you look at the clay pot example, there is a change in the form. And the change in the form cannot take place without the intervention of who? The potter and his instruments. So what we call karakas, the factors of action, they have to come in. Therefore, in this parinami upadana karanam, which is partial, there is a potter, there is the instrument, the potter and the instrument coming together result in an action, karma. That karma results in the change of form of the lump of clay into the pot. Therefore, wherever there is karma involved, wherever there is karma involved, remember it is parinami upadana karanam. And the second conclusion is that if it is a parinami upadana karanam, the karanam and the karyam, they both belong to the same level of reality. Now, if you take the rope snake example, how does the rope become the snake? What are the conditions we said? Partial transformation, complete transformation. The rope does not transform at all, either partially or fully into the snake. The second one we said is karma should be involved. There is no karma involved in the transformation of the rope into the snake. And the third one we said was the cause and the product, the karanam and the karyam, are at different levels of reality, right? So rope belongs to one level of reality and snake belongs to another level of reality. If it is a parinami upadana karanam, both belong to the same level of reality. So none of the three conditions are fulfilled. Rope does not transform partially or fully. There is no karma involved. And the rope and the snake do not belong to the same level of reality. Since none of these conditions is fulfilled, these conditions are a must for what? For it to be parinami upadana karanam. And the conditions are not fulfilled. Therefore, this conversion is vivarta upadana karanam. And we said there must be an upadi. What is upadi? The upadi is avidya, ignorance. Without the ignorance, the rope cannot become the snake. The transformation is very seemingly only because of the presence of the ignorance upadi. And that is how we explain the Shruti statement. When Shruti says Brahman is Jagat Karanam, remember that nowhere in scriptures, nowhere in the Upanishads will you find the term Vivarta Upadana Karanam. It's a extraction, right? So we have done Taittiriya. In Taittiriya there is a mantra, Yathova imani bhutani jayanti. It says that the entire universe emerges from Brahman. Okay, so the extraction from there is what? Brahman is the material cause. Then in Katho Upanishad we saw Eki Rupam Bahuda Karoti. Again talking about Brahman, but saying that one Brahman, Eki Rupam, is the non-changing cause. Eki Rupam, without changing its form, becomes Bahudaha. Bahuda karoti becomes many. So two statements take together. One is that from Brahman the universe emerges. The other is that Brahman is non-changing, and from the non-changing universe, non-changing Brahman, multiple products emerge. You put them together, what happens? You look at the three conditions we talked about, and you find that it has to be a Vivarta Upadana Karanam. Since it is a Vivarta Upadana Karanam, the product Jagat has to be a lower level of reality than the Brahman, the Karan. Right? If you take Brahman as Parinami Upadana Karanam, remember that when the transformation into the universe takes place, what is the problem? If you say that Brahman is converting into the universe, means actually Parinami Upadana Karanam, total transformation takes place. Then what happens?
Brahman is no longer Satyam. It's changing.
Brahman doesn't exist anymore. It is changing. And a changing Brahman is not Nityam. And if you don't have something Nityam in your life, where is the question of moksha? The entire Shruti will become apraman, will become without any purpose at all. So with this, we'll stop for today. Any questions? Quite heavy, I know. I suggest that you go back and meditate on what we have thought about, because it is going to become heavier and heavier as we progress. So with this, we'll stop for today. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your
Thank you, Acharya.
patience.
Thank you,
Om.
Acharya.